Yesterday was a particularly historic day in Guyana. It's the first time we've actually had a campaign launch in the National Assembly, and we appreciate that. I want to start off by acknowledging that the principle of direct transfers, which was first articulated by Professor Thomas of the Working People's Alliance, has finally found fertile ground or semi-fertile ground, with the president acknowledging eventually that direct transfers to the citizenry is a course that ought to be followed. And that principle, which was first articulated by Professor Thomas, and of course, I think after that was adopted by most of the opposition parties, if not all of them, that principle stands firm. However, there are difficulties with the methodology proposed by the president and the principle proposed by the president, who has spoken about direct transfers to households. I want to start off by saying this. The difficulty with not capturing the process for the transfers of monetary resources directly to the citizen in a statutory framework, which would then set out a regulatory framework, leads to a lot of confusion. Because what has happened is that you've had an announcement by the president in the National Assembly, but there is no framework for which this is going to be carried out. And there are cases where we believe there are going to be significant difficulties. So let me start off by saying, first of all, what is a definition of a household? The president has said it's going to be given to the household. Does a household mean a single family living in a single dwelling? Does a household mean several families, each living in the same location? Each family will get a handout. There's no statutory definition for this. What is the position with citizens who are in peer institutions, the Palms, for example, night shelters? What is the position with squatters? What is the position with minors who are in the interior and are single? What is the position with single persons who are still living with their parents? All of these challenges are now going to be laid, or I should say the discretion for the distribution of the proceeds is now going to be vested singly in whoever is at the place where they are going to distribute the cash grant. And we believe this leads to a lot of confusion and potentially social disruption. So we believe, first of all, there should be a statutory framework that says this amount that is being distributed is based on recommendations made by appropriately qualified economists. Secondly, the framework for the distribution will do a couple of things. One, define what a household is. Two, the framework should provide for persons who have complaints, who believe they've been overlooked, who believe they have been unfairly treated, to actually challenge the non-distribution, or if they think somebody has got twice, there must be some sort of framework for those concerns to be addressed. Thirdly, there should be a regulatory framework that sets out the specific categories. We have observed that the vice president spoke about things like GPL and GWI. That rules out a large number of people who are squatting, even in Georgetown. You don't even have to go outside of Georgetown. There are issues in terms of what happens in the indigenous areas. And as part of our patriotic duty, we believe this ought to be regulated. It ought to have a very clear framework. So the persons who are affected by it, who believe that they might have been unfairly treated, or in some areas where you have several families living in one household, what happens there? What happens if it's the landlord? I know that we've received comments from citizens who said previously they were asking for documents of ownership and only the landlords got it. And I think collectively as Guyanese, we all need to learn from the mistakes that we've made and missteps that we've made in the past, so that when we come to deal with this, and we will be dealing with this constantly going forward, irrespective of who is in office, there is actually a regulatory framework. We observed that in a Demerara Waves publication earlier today, I think it might have been late yesterday, that the vice president referred to the number of households from the consensus. I believe the exact quote is that he actually said that, and this is from taking it from Demerara Waves, the census says there are 264,000 households, but the vice president said it is estimated could be as many as 300,000 households. The first question is that the 2012 consensus, the census, or is that the census from 2022? And if it is the 2022 census, then I think that should be released so all of us can examine it. And I would believe that the 2012 census would be woefully inadequate. So I think all of these issues that have arisen as a result of the the president's announcement yesterday at the launch of the campaign in the National Assembly, all of these all these concerns we have need to be addressed. The second and final topic that I want to address is, of course, free education. We applaud the return to free education because Ghana has had free education from primary level. One of the concerns being addressed by the government, first of all, was the University of Ghana engaged and alerted to the fact that come January, there will be free education. This puts additional stress on the university, and I like this return. So I just want to make sure the context is correct. This puts additional stress on the university, call for a lot of additional resources to be allocated to the university, both for the recruitment of additional human resources. It also would require additional resources for accommodation and many other developments that are a consequence of making education free. Now, I think in tandem with making education free, we must urge the government that we must make the university one of the premier educational facilities definitely, and they must have a clear plan going to do this. How are they going to increase funding for research? How are they going to increase salaries for the people that teach there? How they plan to increase the number of professional staff that they have, and all the other challenges that come with being able to provide free education. Trinidad and Tobago has had free education all the way to tertiary levels. And I think they, I know, are serviced by two premier universities, University of Trinidad and Tobago and the University of the West Indies. And we should really perhaps lean upon them for support in how you keep the level of the university high, as well as at the same time providing free tertiary education to all of the persons who matriculate and are qualified to receive that.